Hi there, it's Polly here. So, I want to talk to you about a very cool set of rules. It's the Quick Armour Rules. These are by Minden Games. Now, Minden is a really great little publisher. I'll give you links to their site down below. But Minden do some really, really nice stuff. But I like these. This is Quick Armour Rules. So, these are designed for Western Desert World War II. Now, I really... Backstory, which maybe no one needs, but I always had a fascination for that. So I'm Australian. My grandfather fought at Tobruk and all this sort of stuff. Didn't make it back. Not really. He was a anti-tank gunner, got severely wounded at El Alamein, and made it back, but didn't last very long. He got severely wounded and just didn't last. So I never met him. So as a child growing up, I had a fascination for the whole Rommel, Western Deserty kind of thing, because this was kind of the connection to the granddad that I'd never met. Plus, I found all of his diaries and I read them. And he was really good at keeping these diaries and so on. So I kind of had a cool connection there. But I was just really fascinated by it. As a wargamer, these were some of my introductions to wargaming. And it's actually one of the great environments for playing World War II. I shall explain why. So, most World War II gaming that you will see it's damn well always 1944. I don't know, people are just fixated on Europe, 1944, D-Day through to fall of Berlin. I don't know, is super tanks or something? I don't quite get it. But this is what they fixate on. This is all people will play. The early war is way more interesting because there's a collision of ideas in the early war where there were different tactical theories which were coming into play, and the actual clash of experience was showing that these weren't working out quite the way anyone had thought. And of course, these did turn into cool later stuff. So, out of this clash, we do get Panther tanks and, we get T-34s and we get Comets and etc., etc. But this clash of ideas is what makes these, 1940, 41, sometimes 42 period just so very cool to play. Now, the creators of Quick Armour Rules wanted something that does essentially tank combat. One of the fascinations about that Western Desert is there's no terrain. Honestly, take a look at it, and they've got lots of photos in the rules. Often, it's just flat, hard going, so horizon to horizon. There may be some little tufts of occasional dead grass that are ankle height. The rest just kind of sand and dust as far as the eye can see. Now, there were areas when you get around the El Alamein area, sort of way, way, way further east and so on, where you get into Dune country and all this sort of stuff. But no, the main stuff, the main theatre of operations, it's just blank. And that's why you really don't get much in the way of infantry or anyone involved in this. It's got to be motorized, and because it can be seen from you can just see from horizon to horizon, you can see it. And if you can see it, you can start shooting at it. So therefore it had to be armored. So this was the tank war non-pareil. Nothing's ever quite matched this. Clash of armor versus armor, tank versus tank. This is it. And this has kind of affected everyone's thinking ever since. People still make tanks today with the idea that tanks are going to be fighting tanks, which they don't. Not really. Not anymore. Tanks are incredibly useful and they're the battlefield winners. They truly are. But that tank versus tank clash, they're thinking back to this, is where they're thinking. So, the rules. What they've done is you can play this with essentially counters. You can print out counters. But this works really, really well with 1/300th, 6mm figures, which is great because they're cheap, and they're great to paint up. You don't need terrain. You just really need a flat table. One model represents one tank, and pretty much a millimetre is a metre. They've got a nice movement system. Now, all of the vehicles are really beautifully listed. They're listed for how fast they go, what their reliability is, what their armor class is, what their weapons are. You are playing a game where there's plenty of scenarios in the rules, but the idea is they're not putting in rules for difficult questions. They're not putting in rules for infantry and so on. This is tank and anti-tank. So we've got tanks, we do have artillery, and we have anti-tank guns. Now, if you want to expand the rules, because of course there were like tens of thousands of infantry involved in these campaigns, Siege of Tobruk, the infantry attacks, clearing the mine belts at El Alamein, all of these sorts of things, you can certainly do them. That's not what these rules are about, but you can see how you can just tack those on. So easy to expand on, and it almost, the rules give you so many ideas, it just begs you to do this. It really does. Beautiful, beautiful piece of work. But what you do is, when you're playing, at the start of each turn, both sides roll the dice. Whoever gets the highest, you've got initiative for that turn, which means you get to move the first unit. You move one, he moves one. You move one, he moves one. Back and forth. You put down move when something's moved. You may then fire. In the firing section, you both roll dice for initiative again. Whoever gets the highest one, they fire one of theirs. The other guy fires one of his. Fire, back and back and back and back. You can, under some circumstances, interrupt the other guy's move and take an opportunity shot, etc., etc. Now, all fire is done with 2d6. You take a boule, 2d6, and you are rolling, given the range. They've split the range into short, medium, long, extreme range bands. You're rolling on 2d6, looking for low numbers to hit your target. If you have moved during the turn, your chance of hitting is very, very much lower. Now, they haven't put in rules for being hull down and all this sort of stuff because there's nowhere to be hull down. It's just flat. I cannot emphasize how flat this terrain is. But if you wanted to modify the rules to play in those areas where there are hills and so on, easy to put in hull down rules. Easy, easy, easy. Just, or what do you feel like? Is it 2 harder to hit? 4 harder to hit? Whatever. Now, length of the gun barrel. Obviously, the short-barreled weapons, they have a maximum range at which they can fire, and they also get a subtraction from accuracy. So you've generally got long, medium, and short-barreled weapons. Once you've rolled, if you've made a score and you've hit, you have to roll in for effect. Now, you've got a little chart, and what you do is you're going to cross-reference the weapon that is fired with what you have fired at. And here's where the thing becomes quite interesting. So, one little side jump first. Some weapons have basically a follow-up fire ability. Instead of rolling 2 dice when you're firing, you roll 3 dice. One of them is a different color. On the specs for that vehicle or weapon, there'll be a dot. For each dot, that's its chance of getting follow-up fire. So you get, if it's got 1 dot, if the special color dice comes up with a 1, you get a second shot with it. If it's got 3 dots, if you roll a 1, 2, or 3 on the second dice, it gets a follow-up shot. So a lot of things like, say, an 88mm gun, they've got a big crew and they've got lots of area around them to work with. So they're actually quite rapid fire, way faster than many tank guns where you've got, the crews in cramped conditions. If you've got something like some of the British tanks and Italian tanks where they don't have a 3-man turret, the crew commander is also serving as either the gunner or serving as the loader, they don't have as many guys crewing the gun and then looking for targets and spotting full of shot. So they don't really get a follow-up fire, but some of the German ones do because they've got that 3-man highly trained crew, so they're quite good at firing rapidly. So this comes in. Now, the interesting thing is how widely these vehicles vary in their armor and their striking power. You might recall, Wargamers amongst us, all of you, So, British 2-pounders, quite a natty little high-velocity 37 40mm gun. It's actually a good gun, but only 5 solid shot. The German 37, actually, I don't think it's quite as good as the 2-pounder. It's not quite as high per velocity. However, the 50mm gun, which just starts coming in, yeah, that's getting better. The 74 short that's on a Panzer IV, that's not an anti-armor gun. That really can't do much. But, you know, when you finally do get a 75 long starting to come in, yeah, we're getting places. The armour is like, there were different ideas. The British had this idea of the cruiser tank. We're going to split tanks into two sorts. There are some that are there to accompany infantry and so on in assaults. They're there to give them punch and protection. So these things are going to be, we don't need speed. Speed is the worst consideration of this. What they need is protection, because they've got to be there supporting those infantry and just taking the fire. So this is going to be the heaviest armour that we can get at this period. And well, they split them. They said we're going to have like one that's got machine guns and one that's got a 2-pounder in it. The ones with machine guns, that was a stupid idea, and they just didn't survive the Battle of France. They just didn't build those. But the Matilda, it's beautiful. It is a thing of beauty. This thing's a behemoth. Oh my God. And you bring these things on the table, and it's like, there's nothing that can stop it. It's like, literally, this thing's just immune. It's slow. It's glacially slow. It's got a 2-pounder gun, which is like, okay. But, yeah, you can just fling stuff. The only way you are going to take out a Matilda with a German tank is you're going to have to race past its frontal arc, and you're going to have to attack it in the flanks and rear. Which, since it's slow moving, you've got a chance of doing. However, if the British are keeping an echelon formation or whatever, then you're going to have trouble getting round, coming in that arrowhead formation. They're not exposing flanks. You've got to bust that formation up. However, they're slow moving, and this is open terrain. The 88. The German 88 is going to be able to pick those things off. That's the only thing that can get them. And it's still not instant death. It's like, I think the penetration is something like an 8 or less on 2 dice, but that's pretty lethal, particularly when this thing's moving at a princely speed of about, 8 miles an hour. And you got the follow-up fire. Bounced off his glasses. Bang, bang, oop, turret's off. Boom. You can also get mobility hits on things, even if you don't penetrate. If you roll straight double 5s, then you've hit a track. The vehicle is immobilized for the rest of the game, but can still fire. And 12s are always a miss, and you can get jams, etc. But so you've got this gun armor thing, but the British have got the cruiser tanks, where their idea was it's just going to be speed. We don't really care about armor. Speed, because these are things that are they're going to plunge around the flanks. They're going to harry the enemy, bash the Boche, hammer the Hun. These are the cavalry of old. And this is where you get interesting stuff coming in. So you get the Crusaders, and some of those go like a bat out of hell. The reliability number on them is terrible, which is right. The thing is, you could literally, every time you tried turning over the engine on one of these British tanks, and I've driven one, no. It's just a random dice roll and a prayer. It's like, maybe it works today, maybe it doesn't. The German stuff's really very reliable. So you can see, most reliable tends to be American. Those guys knew how to do an engine, and that was the thing. When the Shermans come in, they said, we got something. It's totally reliable. Same went for the Honeys, the Stuart light tank. When you turn that over, it just works. So, like, crews loved them. So you get these radically different things. You get the Stuart light tanks start coming in. You got the timeline where you're doing. So you initially get the British. They've got slow-moving Matildas. They've got some Crusaders. So they've got really slow, not much of a punch, but highly kind of invulnerable tanks. And I've got quite vulnerable things that move like a bat over hell, have the same crappy gun. No, we start getting some 6-pounders coming in those fast-moving crappy tanks. So a bit more punch, but it still flies apart. You get the Honeys turn up, the American Stuarts, which go like a bat out of hell. The armour is not great, but pretty reliable, and it's got a little 37 in it. All right, fair enough. And if it's a heavier German tank, because the Germans, they start up-armouring their tanks. So you start off with, some of the Mark IIs, they're a joke. The Mark IIIs with 37, meh. The armour is okay, it's good. but it's very reliable, and and the crews are well trained, and then it's a 3-man crew, so in the turret, so you can get that follow-up fire. But now we start to get the higher marks of Mark III. We get the ones that have got spaced armor in the front, so they've got better armor. Now we're getting the 50mm, and that 50mm is starting to pack up. Now we're getting the 50mm long, so we've got a more accurate. And then you get the Lee Grant start turning up, which is that's fairly tough. It's got a 37mm gun, and it's got this. It's got basically a 75mm howitzer in the hull. It's not a tank-killing gun, but it's really good at getting rid of anti-tank guns and so on. Fair enough. And the Sherman. It's just like a game changer when it turns up. Like, holy crap! You can see suddenly their prayers are answered. What is this? This is a relatively fast tank. It's got pretty damn good armor. The initial Shermans aren't as heavy as the ones in the later war. So they're not as heavy as a Matilda, but it's almost as heavy as a Matilda, but it's as fast as a cruiser, and it's got a 75mm gun. Wow. I'll buy it. But the Germans have got the dreaded 88mm guns and the 37s and all this sort of stuff. The Italian stuff, it's like, again, it's kind of clanky. They've got these tankettes, because their idea was, we're going to have these small kind of nippy little armoured vehicles that are there to, again, they'll be low silhouette. They'll be able to lunge around and do stuff. No, they weren't very good, and they're small, so they can't carry much of a punch. Oh, okay, well, they've got sort of a pretty standard tank. We just need a thing that's got some armor on it and a kind of a crappy gun. But it's a 2-man turret because it's small. We want to keep it as small as possible. And then you get some, the 1340s and so on, which are a little bit better, but they're still not. They're bolted armor rather than cast, so they're a little bit more brittle. But they kind of do the job. And so, you've got these nice balance. But the balance of forces is so interesting because all of these vehicles do such radically different things. And you can see the clash of ideas. The British, we're going to have the stolid things holding the line, and we're going to have the fast things to speed up down the side. Yeah, okay. The crews are saying, help us. This idea is not working. Good. And evolution, Shermans. I'll buy it. The Germans again. We have the light tanks. We have the stumpy-barreled Mark IVs as support tanks, and we've got the line tanks, which are the Mark IIIs and whatever. And it's like, what's happening? Well, your Mark IVs are useless. Your Mark IIIs are we're starting to develop those, and they're pretty good, but they're still a bit of a pea shooter. And of course, you can see in the end, the Mark III chassis is just not going to take any more development. Because I'm part contiguity with the 4s. All right, we're switching to 4s, everybody. 4s are going to be our main thing. We take the 3 as far as can go. Wait, were those drawings for that thing with a 75mm with an actual barrel on it? Show me those again. So yeah, the year you're running it in gives you dramatically different mixes. It's great. So way more fun than playing Europe. Oh god, here come the T-34s again. Snooze. He's got Panthers yet again. So they've got like very simple rules to simulate this, but it's got depth. It's fun. It's playing these. These are great fun. You're nipping around the place and so things going about. A couple of lame ducks have had the track shot out from under them, but they're still battling on. Oh my god, you've got to stop those Matildas coming up the centre. You're firing at the Matildas. You've ignored the pair of Crusaders that come racing up, and oh my god, they've overrun your 88s. But that's okay. You've still got a couple of German Mark IVs raging in with little stubby-bodied 75s, trying to get those Crusaders. Big mo, little schmo. It's fun. But what I like about these is that they're kind of yours to develop. If you want to do more, if you want to put in infantry and so on, just adapt the structures that you've seen there and put it in. If you want to put in more terrain rules and so on, they're in there. They're implied. They just say that this is not set up for that. And you could feed in the stats for any other vehicles you want. If you must play later war, it's in there. You've got the things. If you wanted to play more detail, like this really was my thing. There is an arms race going on at the time between different types of armor-piercing ammunition and different types of armor. So we initially get AP, which is solid. Then we get AP capped, which has a harder kind of cap on top of it, but they weren't quite as accurate because, you know, the penetrator on this thing. So then you get armor piercing capped, ballistic capped, which has a streamlined ballistic cap over the hard penetrator cap. Then you get, you know, etc., etc. Then you get all kinds of discarding sapper and squeeze bore, and yep, fantastic. But do you need it in this? No. Quick Armour Rules. We want you to be able to play this. If you wanted to bring in stuff for having special ammunition, you could do it. And again, do it with a sweep of your hand. These vehicles all get, like, it's in limited supply. We're going to say each vehicle that is of a type that can get specialized ammunition, it gets 1 D3 shots of special penetrator ammunition. There you go. Some of these Mark IIIs might be ones that have got spaced armor. Fantastic. It gets 1 extra armor on the front. But these are rare, so just make a random roll for each of your Mark IIIs that you're bringing on of the improved sort and see if these are the ones that got the spaced armor. You can do that. You can bring in your own little scenario things. They've got lots of nice scenario rules in there. And of course, they're saying that in some of these, fuel is limited. So you're going to have to keep the movement down. Some of them are, like, ammunition is limited. Some of these are, you know, shoot up the supply convoy. Some of these are, you know, defend the command post kind of scenarios. Scouting missions where the idea is you've got to, you know, get something off this end of the board. They've got a really nice selection of scenarios there to use. So just a game that you can reach in and play. It's on it's up there on Wargames Vault. I think it cost the, you know, princely sum of $1 or $2. Incredibly playable. And again, as this was my introduction to World War II, really good World War II rules to introduce new players to. People who aren't, you know, tank fanatics. Why would you not be a tank fanatic? Sorry, tanks went into a happy place. But it's a good introduction to this. You don't have to learn 500 bloody tables of organization for the, you know, the Canadian divisions invading Northwest Europe or no, just all the stats are in there. Just grab a handful of 1/300 things or print out the counters and just play. Great, fantastic. And if it engages everybody, they got campaign rule ideas in there, and you can just get in there and do it. I think this is a great set of rules. Take a look, by the way, at Minden on their site. They've got some really nice stuff. They've got some good World War II tactical games for, you know, infantry combat and so on, a man-to-man scale infantry combat. And they've also got some great stuff like torpedo bombers. They've got lots of kind of Taranto style, torpedo bomber games, and there's some very cool stuff there. I haven't been able to afford to buy more of their things because you know, I don't have the money, but I'm really liking the bits and pieces I'm seeing from them. Nice group of guys. Anywho, quick Armour Rules. Go take a look. Great fun, great to play. I really enjoyed them. If you've liked the reviews, by all means, hit like, hit subscribe, find me on Patreon, and hopefully I will see you one day around the gaming table. Keep rolling the dice, everybody, and I will see you anon. Cheers!